Imagine spending 40 years of your life building a multi-billion-dollar empire. Imagine the sweat, the sleepless nights, and the sacrifices you made to ensure your children would never know hunger. Now imagine lying on your deathbed, gasping for breath, and hearing those same children in the next room laughing while they divide your properties before your heart even stops beating. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching and shocking lesson, please take a moment to support the channel. If you believe that character is more important than money, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that touches the soul. Now let's begin the story of Chief Solomon's final test. This is the story of Chief Solomon Balogun, a man whose wealth was known across the continent, but whose home was a desert of love. Solomon had everything money could buy: fleets of luxury cars, gold-plated furniture, and a company that controlled the city's skyline. But as he looked into the eyes of his 3 children, he didn't see grief. He saw vultures waiting for a carcass. In a move that would shock the entire nation and trend on every social media platform, Chief Solomon decided to do the unthinkable. He didn't leave his hotels to his first son. He didn't leave his oil blocks to his second son. And he didn't leave his jewelry and mansions to his only daughter. Instead, he signed every single penny over to a complete stranger, a young woman with no last name and a faded uniform. Chief Solomon Balogun was a man of power. In his city, his name was synonymous with success. He lived in a mansion so large it had 3 different wings, a swimming pool that looked like a blue diamond, and a garage filled with cars that cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. But inside that mansion, Solomon was a lonely man. His wife, Maria, had passed away 10 years ago, and since then the light had gone out of the house. His 3 children, Marcus, Julian, and Elena, had grown up with silver spoons in their mouths. They attended the best universities abroad, flew in private jets, and never. An hour later, Julian, the second son, strolled in. He smelled of expensive cologne and late-night parties. "Hey, old man," Julian said, leaning against the doorframe. "Tough break about health. Listen, I had a bit of a run-in at the casino last night. I need about $50,000 to clear a debt before the guys come knocking. Can you authorize a transfer?" "Julian," Solomon wheezed, "I can barely breathe. Can you get me some water?" Julian groaned. "There are maids for that, Dad. Just give me the password to the secondary account, and I'll get the butler to bring you a whole gallon." When Solomon turned his face away, Julian hissed under his breath. "Fine. Be difficult. It's all coming to me soon anyway." Finally, Elena, the only daughter, entered. She was dressed in the latest Parisian fashion, her hair perfectly styled. She didn't come to bed. She stood by the window looking at her reflection in the glass. "Daddy, you look terrible," Elena said with a pout. "This house is so depressing now with all the medical equipment. I'm thinking of moving to the penthouse in the city until, things are settled. It's better for my mental health." "Elena," Solomon whispered, "will you stay and read to me? Like you used to when you were a little girl?" Elena rolled her eyes. "I have a gala to attend, Daddy. I'm the guest of honor. I can't show up with puffy eyes from crying. I'll send a nurse, okay? A professional one. They are paid to care. I'm not." She blew a fake kiss and swept out of the room, her high heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. Solomon lay in the silence, a single tear rolling down his cheek. He was the richest man in the city, but he was a beggar for love in his own home. That was when Maya arrived. Maya was a young woman from the local nursing agency. She was an orphan who had worked 3 jobs to. Maya walked past them quietly, headed for Solomon's room. Marcus stopped her. "Hey, the help. Make sure the old man is comfortable, but don't let him talk you into changing anything in his room. We've already catalogued the antiques." Maya looked at him, her eyes filled with shock. "Sir, your father is very ill. He needs your company, not an inventory of his furniture." Marcus stepped closer, his face turning red. "You are paid to clean bedpans and give injections. You are not paid to give me advice. Do your job and stay out of family business." Maya didn't say another word. She entered Solomon's room and closed the door. She saw a man who looked like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. She didn't see a billionaire. She saw a lonely father. Over the next month, a beautiful bond began to form. Maya didn't just give Solomon his medicine. He talked to him. She told him about her dreams of opening a free clinic for children in the slums. She sang old songs that made him smile. She even brought him homemade soup that she cooked in her own tiny apartment, knowing he was tired of the bland food from the mansion's chef. "Why do you do this, Maya?" Solomon asked one evening as she was wiping his forehead with a cool towel. "My own children don't even know if I've eaten today." Maya smiled gently. "Because every person deserves to be loved, especially when they are walking through the valley of the shadow of death. My mother told me that kindness is the only thing we take with us when we leave this world." Solomon looked at her, his eyes filled with a peace he hadn't felt in years. "You have a pure soul, Maya. Don't let this world change you." Outside the room, the storm was brewing. Marcus had discovered that Solomon had been meeting with Mr. Abraham, the lawyer, more frequently. "He's changing the will," Marcus hissed to Julian and Elena in the hallway. "I know it. He's probably going to leave a huge chunk to some charity or that pathetic orphanage he supports." "We can't let that happen," Elena said, her eyes narrowing. "That money belongs to us. We are Balogans. We have a status to maintain. What if we prove he's not in his right mind?" Julian suggested. "We can say the sickness has affected his brain. We can take over the estate now." They began to. One afternoon, Elena walked into the room while Maya was helping Solomon sit up. "You!" Elena screamed at Maya. "Where is the diamond watch my father usually keeps on his nightstand?" "It's missing." Maya looked confused. "I haven't seen any watches, ma'am. I only moved the books to clean the dust." "You're a thief," Elena shouted, stepping forward and slapping Maya across the face. "You saw an old man dying and thought you could help yourself to his treasures." Solomon tried to speak, but a fit of coughing stopped him. "Search her bag," Marcus thundered, appearing in the doorway. He grabbed Maya's small bag and dumped its contents onto the floor. Out tumbled a stethoscope, a worn-out Bible, and a small photo of Maya's deceased mother. There was no watch. "You probably hid it somewhere else," Julian sneered. "Pack your things. You're fired. And if we see your face near this mansion again, we'll have you arrested." Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't beg. She looked at Solomon, her heart breaking for the man who was now being left alone with these wolves. "I'm sorry, Chief," Maya whispered. Solomon reached out a trembling hand and caught hers for a brief second. His eyes sent a silent message. "Trust me." Maya walked out of the mansion with nothing but her dignity. The children laughed as they watched her walk down the long driveway in the rain. "Good riddance," Elena said, sipping champagne. "Now let's call the lawyer. It's time we finish this." But what they didn't know was that Mr. Abraham was already in the house, hidden in the study, and he had recorded every single word of their cruelty. 2 days later, the mansion was filled with a heavy silence. The news broke. Chief Solomon Balogun had passed away in his sleep. The children didn't waste a single hour. They called for a formal reading of the will the very next morning. They invited the press, the business associates, and the city's elite. They wanted everyone to see them take their thrones. As they sat in the grand hall, dressed in black lace and expensive suits, they saw a figure enter through the back door. It was Maya, wearing a simple black dress, her eyes red from crying. "What is she doing here?" Elena hissed. "Security. Throw this beggar out." "Wait," Mr. Abraham said, standing at the head of the table. "She is here by the express command of your father. She must stay for the reading of the will." Marcus smirked. "Fine. Let her stay. Let her see exactly how much she didn't get." Mr. Abraham opened a large wax-sealed envelope. The room went silent. "I, Solomon Balogun," the lawyer began to read, "being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my final will and testament." He read through the minor bequests, small amounts to the staff, the donation of his library to the university. The children leaned forward, their hearts racing. "And now, regarding the bulk of my estate," Mr. Abraham's voice grew louder. "Including all bank accounts, the Balogun Group shares, all real estate holdings, and the family mansion. I leave everything 100% to..." The children held their breath. Marcus was already thinking of the new yacht. Elena was thinking of the diamond mine. "To my only true child, Maya." The silence that followed was like a bomb had gone off. Marcus was the first to break the silence. He stood up so quickly that his heavy mahogany chair toppled backward, crashing against the marble floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "This is a joke." Marcus thundered, his face turning a dark, bruised shade of purple. This is a fraud. My father was a man of logic, a man of business. He would never leave his life's work to a girl who cleans floors and changes bandages. Elena was shaking, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles turned white. Maya? That thief? The one I slapped out of this house just 3 days ago? Mr. Abraham, you have lost your mind. Or maybe she's paying you. How much did she promise you to forge this document? Julian didn't even stand up. He looked like he had been struck by lightning. His mind was racing through the debts he owed to the casino, the people who were expecting payment the moment the will was read. I'm dead, he whispered to himself. I'm a dead man. Then he looked up, venom dripping from his voice. She bewitched him. That's what happened. She used some kind of village medicine to cloud his mind while he was weak. We are his blood. We are Balugans. Maya stood at the back of the room, her small frame trembling. She looked as shocked as they were. She hadn't known. She had come today only to pay her respects to a man she genuinely cared for. I don't want it, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the children's shouting. Shut up. Elena screamed, turning on her. Of course you want it. You've been planning this since the day you walked in here with your fake smiles and your homemade soup. You're a professional gold digger, aren't you? You saw an old man dying and you saw a paycheck. Mr. Abraham remained perfectly calm. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the 3 children with a look of profound pity. The will is ironclad, Marcus. It was witnessed by 2 other senior advocates and a court magistrate. It was signed and sealed while your father was in full possession, sharper than they had been in years. There was no cough in his voice. He looked like the lion he used to be. If you are watching this, Solomon's voice filled the room, deep and resonant, it means I am gone. And it means my final test is complete. Marcus, Julian, and Elena froze. They stared at the screen as if their father had returned from the grave. I spent my life building wealth, Solomon said on the screen. Solomon leaned forward in the video. Therefore, Maya is now the owner of the Balogun Empire. He is the CEO. She is the landlord. She is the mother of the legacy I spent 40 years building. Because she is the only one with a heart big enough to handle it. The screen went black. For a long time no one spoke. The business associates and the press were already typing furiously on their phones. The headline was already trending. Billionaire disinherits children. Leaves all to nurse. Marcus turned to Maya, his voice trembling with a mix of rage and desperation. Maya, listen. You're a good person, right? You said you didn't want it. Let's make a deal. We'll give you 5 million. No, 10 million. Just sign the renunciation papers. You can walk away rich. You don't want the stress of running a company. Maya looked at Marcus. For the first time she didn't look down. She didn't look like a timid nurse. She saw the greed in his eyes, and she felt a surge of strength she didn't know she had. Chief Solomon didn't give me this money because he wanted me to be rich, Marcus, Maya said firmly. He gave it to me because he knew you would destroy everything he worked for. He gave it to me to protect the thousands of employees who depend on this company, employees you were planning to fire to cut costs. Elena let out a hysterical laugh. You think you can run a company? You're a servant. You're a nobody. Actually, Mr. Abraham interrupted, Maya is now your boss. And as the sole owner of this mansion, she has asked me to inform you that your social season in this house is over. He pulled out 3 sets of documents. These are eviction notices. Since you all have personal penthouses and apartments funded by your father's generosity over the years, you have 48 hours to vacate the Balogun estate. All credit cards linked to the Balogun group have been deactivated as of 5 minutes ago. Your luxury cars, which are technically company property, must be returned to the garage by sunset. Elena screamed, a high-pitched, jagged sound. You can't do this. My clothes. My jewelry. My bags. Anything you bought with your own earned salary you may keep, Mr. Abraham said with a cold smile. The room went silent again. Because everyone knew the truth. Marcus, Julian, and Elena had never earned a single cent in their lives. Julian slumped into his chair, his head in his hands. The casino, they're coming for me, Marcus. What am I going to do? Marcus didn't answer. He was staring at Maya, his mind trying to find a loophole, a way back into the light. but the light was gone. "Get out," Maya said quietly. "What did you say?" Marcus hissed. "I said get out," Maya said, her voice rising with authority. "This is a house of mourning, not a boardroom. You didn't come here to bury your father. You came here to pick his pockets. I will not have his memory insulted by your presence another minute." The children were escorted out by the very security guards they used to treat like dirt. The guards didn't handle them gently. They didn't listen to Elena's threats or Julian's pleas. They pushed them out into the bright afternoon sun, the same sun that had shone on their father's coffin just hours before. As the gates of the Balogun mansion clicked shut, Marcus looked back through the iron bars. He saw the stranger standing on the porch, the new queen of the empire. But the lesson was only beginning. Chief Solomon had one more surprise hidden in his safe, a secret that would either be the children's salvation or their final destruction. The next 6 months were a descent into a reality Marcus, Julian, and Elena never knew existed. The real world was cold, and without their father's signature they were nothing. Marcus, who once looked down on everyone from a high-rise office, found that no one wanted to hire a man known for trying to defraud his own father's company. He was forced to move from his gold-accented penthouse to a cramped, one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city he used to call the slums. He traded his Italian suits for a generic office uniform, working as a junior clerk for a small firm, earning in a month what he used to spend on a single lunch. Julian's fall was even more violent. Without the Balogun name to protect him, the casino creditors came calling. They took his jewelry, his designer watches, and even his shoes. He spent his days working as a delivery driver, sweating under the hot sun, the smell of fast food replacing the expensive cologne that had once been his trademark. Every time he pulled up to a mansion to drop off a package, he was reminded of the kingdom he had thrown away for a deck of cards. Elena, the social queen, found that her friends were as shallow as her bank account. The moment the credit cards were cut, her phone stopped ringing. She tried to sell her designer bags and jewelry, only to find out that most of the gifts her boyfriends had given her were high-quality fakes. She eventually found work as an assistant in a local boutique, the same kind of shop where she used to spend thousands and treat the staff like servants. Now she was the one folding clothes and smiling at rude customers, her hands cracked from cleaning and her feet aching from standing all day. Meanwhile, back at the Balogun mansion, Maya was doing exactly what Chief Solomon had hoped. She didn't buy a single luxury car. She didn't throw a single party. Instead, she used the profits of the company to fund the Solomon Grace Clinic, a network of free healthcare centers for the poor. The old loyal workers who Marcus had planned to sack were given raises and renewed respect. Maya walked the halls of the mansion not as a master but as a guardian. One rainy evening, Maya sat in Chief Solomon's old study. She felt a strange pull toward the large floor-to-ceiling safe. Mr. Abraham had given her the code, but she had been too afraid to open it until now. With a trembling hand, she punched in the numbers. Inside there were no bars of gold. There were no stacks of cash. Instead, there was a small wooden box carved with the Balogun family crest. Inside the box were 3 smaller envelopes and one final letter addressed to Maya. Maya opened the letter. It read, "Maya, if you are reading this, it means you have managed the estate for 6 months with the grace I knew you possessed. By now, my children have tasted the bitterness of the life they once mocked. I do not hate them, Maya. I am a father. But I had to break them to save them. Call them to the house. Give them the envelopes. One last lesson." The next morning, the 3 children were summoned to the mansion. They walked up the long driveway not in limousines but on foot. They looked different. Marcus's shoulders were slumped, his eyes tired. Julian looked thin and humble. Elena wore no makeup and her clothes were simple and worn. They were led into the grand hall where Maya was waiting. They didn't shout. They didn't call her a thief. They simply sat down, their heads lowered in shame. "I called you here because your father left you something," Maya said softly. She handed Marcus the first envelope. Marcus opened it. Inside was a single key and a map to a small, humble house on the outskirts of the city. There was a note in his father's handwriting. "Marcus, this is the house where I was born. It is the only property I own that was bought with my first year of honest sweat. If you can live there and manage a small grocery store I've set up nearby for 1 year without complaining, Maya will give you back your seat on the board. Success is built on sweat, not signatures." Julian opened his. Inside was a receipt for the full payment of his casino debts and a scholarship to a culinary school. The note read, "Julian, I paid your debts not to save your skin but to give you a clean slate. You always had a talent for food but you were too busy drinking the wine to cook the meal. Complete this course, work in a real kitchen for a year, and Maya will grant you the funds to open your own restaurant. Earn your own name." Finally, Elena opened hers. It was a photo of her mother, Maria, working at a charity shelter years ago. Along with it was a document naming Elena as the head of the Balogun Foundation's outreach program, a position with a modest salary and a lot of travel to the poorest regions. The note read, "Elena, you have your mother's beauty, but you forgot she used that beauty to bring light into dark places. If you can serve those who have nothing for 1 year, you will find the jewelry you were always looking for. It's called a purpose." The three siblings looked at the papers, then at Maya, and then at the empty chair where their father used to sit. For the first time in their lives they didn't think about the billions. They thought about the man. "He didn't give up on us," Elena whispered, tears finally streaming down her face. Real tears this time. "No," Maya said, standing up. "He loved you enough to let you fail. He gave me the fortune to keep it safe, but he gave you the chance to become the people he always hoped you would be." Marcus stood up and for the first time he walked over to Maya and extended his hand. "Thank you, Maya. For looking after him when we wouldn't. And for keeping the door open for us." Maya took his hand and smiled. The stranger was no longer a stranger. She was the sister they never deserved but the one they desperately needed. Moral of the story: wealth is not what you have in your bank account. It is what you have in your heart. A legacy is not built on the things you leave behind, but on the character of the people you raise. Money can buy a house but it can never buy a home. Can buy a bed but it can never buy sleep. And as the Balogun children learned the hard way, the hand that gives is always more blessed than the hand that only knows how to take. Treat those beneath you with kindness, for you never know when the cleaner mopping your floor is the one who holds the keys to your future. Thanks for watching this incredible story. If this lesson touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to drop a comment below and tell us what you would have done if you were Chief Solomon. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and join our family for more stories that change lives. We will see you in the next one.